In this last video, what we're going to do is we're going to create some objects within our world, and when we walk through those objects, it will turn on and off those layers. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're in our world. I'm going to zoom back just a little bit using the scroll wheel, or in this case, I'm on a laptop. I'm using 2 fingers on my trackpad to sort of scroll in and out. So what I want to do is create some game objects. And so what I'll do is create a cube. And I have a cube right here. I'm going to sort of move it off to one side. And then what I'll do is create another cube and put it next to it. So I have 2 cubes here. If I zoom in, I can kind of see where they are, and they're pretty high. I want to make sure they're down a little bit lower. So I have kind of 2 cubes here. I want to make sure they're spaced a little bit far apart. And I want to change, so I know what they are in the world. I'm going to make one a little taller, which is the y-axis. So I'll make this one a little taller. So I'll change the scale of that one to 2 and move it up so it's not falling through. One is going to be to turn on a layer, and the other is going to be to turn off a layer. So what we'll do is the cube that's taller is going to turn it on. So what we'll do is select that, and we'll say, we'll call this cube layer 1 on, so that I kind of see it in the hierarchy. And this one I'll call cube layer 1 off. Now I just renamed it. That doesn't actually make the snapshot switch. So what we want to do here is select the on object. And actually layer 1's already on. We're going to turn on layer 2. So what I'll do here is actually change these numbers here to layer 2, because the game starts with 2 on, or layer 1 on already. So what we'll do is change that to cube layer 2 off and cube layer 2 on. So I've written a script for this already, and to get it to work we only have to do 2 things. One is we set up the box collider to make it a trigger, which means that when we collide with it, or when we will trigger something to happen. That something is a component. So what we'll do is add a component, and then what we can start typing in is snapshot for music snapshot. And I've written a small script which basically will switch a snapshot. So we have to select the snapshot. What snapshot do we want to use? And in this case, if we look at them, I've named them all the same. So I'm not sure which one is which. So I'll kind of go back and select layer 2 here and say layer 2 off and layer 2 on, so we know we can see them a little bit easier. So we're in the audio mixer here. And then similarly with layer 3, let's rename those so that when we select them, they make a little bit more sense. And just for consistency, I'll make sure to change these for layer 1 too, although we're not going to do much with layer 1 at this point. Okay, now if I go to my cube up here, my first one, which is on, what we'll do now is select layer 2 on right here, and we're going to fade it over 3 seconds. And then similarly with this one, this is the one where we're going to turn it off. We're going to make it a trigger, and then go ahead and add our music snapshot component, where our snapshot is going to be 2 off, and let's say over 3 seconds. Delay time is how long before it actually kicks in, the fade kicks in. So if we hit play now, and I go over here to this object, and then click on it, so I'm going to run through it, which is basically going to fade up layer 2, which has that piano in it. Now if I want to turn that off, actually it's harp, I can collide with the smaller one, now turn that off. Now I'll go over here, turn it back on. So we can hear that harp again. All right, so I'm going to quickly add 2 more objects to my world. So I'm going to add, let's do cylinders. So here's my first cylinder, and then I'm going to create 1 more cylinder, 3D object, cylinder. And again, I'm going to make the taller one start it. So I'll move that over there, and I'm going to select this first one, and this will be the one that turns it on, and I'll make the Y axis 2 like that. Okay. If you haven't saved, saving's a good thing to do. So we've saved our scene again, and we're going to change these names to cylinder layer 3 on and cylinder. Now we don't have to change the name of it, it's just so that we can keep track of it in our hierarchy so that we know what objects are. Then we go back to our first object, make it a trigger in the collider, and then add our music snapshot. So just start typing in snapshot, and then this one is going to turn it on, so I'll select the circle icon, layer 3 on, over 3 seconds, and then over here I select layer 3 off. I'll go ahead and make that a trigger and add in that same snapshot and select what snapshot I want to use, which is layer 3 off. I'm going to save my scene, and then I'm going to test it. So I'm going to add layer 3 right away. Which has some of the piano, and then this has the harp in it. The piano and the harp sort of start together, but you can hear them kind of working together now. So I'm going to turn off the sort of piano layer. Now the piano layer is kind of running just in the background while this is all happening. And then as I turn on layer 3 again, we'll hear the piano sort of come back in. The woodwind is in layer 2 actually that we're hearing, so I can turn that off. And that's how we set up our layers in a Unity project. Fairly simple. I'm going to show something a little bit more advanced, which is the script itself. Let's look at the script just for fun to see what is actually happening there. When I double click on it here, what it's doing in the background is it's opening Visual Studio. Visual Studio is where we code, it's where we do some of the programming, and it's kind of like a helper application so that we can add additional functionality to Unity. And I've written some very simple scripting language for us to augment our project by switching between those 2 snapshots. So it takes a little bit for it to come up. Once it comes up, I'll walk through the code just a little bit, and then we'll wrap up the tutorial. So this is what the script looks like. It's not very complicated. Right now, what we have is this is a class, which means that it's a piece of reusable code that we can use in many different places. And each time we instantiate it or put it on an object by adding a component with this script in it, then what it will do is create a variable for a snapshot, which we've experimented. So you can see audio mixer snapshot, and then a float for delay time. A float is like a number, and then a delay time. And we can, if those variables are public, we can see them over in the inspector here. So here I have that script loaded, and you can see that we have a variable called my snapshot, fade time and delay time. Fade time and delay time are numbers. In programming, that would be called a floating point number. A floating point number is one that has like a dot in it, so like 23.6, that would be a floating point number. And the snapshot are these things that we've created in the audio mixer. So we basically set it up so that we have this audio mixer snapshot and that we have a default delay time of 3.0 f for float, and that's our fade time, and our delay time is set for 0. And it's telling me that I can update Visual Studio here. And I'm looking at my script and I'm seeing this and I'm going, oh wait, I haven't programmed the delay time at all. Right now, the fade time, so there's several different functions which are these bracketed areas, and you can see that there's a function called start. That happens when the game comes alive and starts up. Update is called once per frame render. So if I want to do something where on every frame render, and then one called on trigger enter. That's when we trigger that object. And what I can do here is I can say, I can add into my script, I want to print something to the console window. A console window is an area where I can kind of debug or fix any any errors that have come up in my script. So what I can do here to check my script is to put in a little note to myself. So I can put in a debug note that says transition started. Now when I go, and I don't expect you to know all about this programming stuff for now. Just if you're interested, when you start programming, you'll learn about different functions that do different things or make things happen in the computer. So what we can do is now when we go back to Unity and we hit play, there's a console window here. And if I go to the console window and enable it, because I put that debug message in, when we collide with an object, it's going to print that out and say, oh, transition started, and give us a little bit of the time of when that happened. And then I'll add in the harp, and later the woodwind that comes in. So, and that's kind of how it works. So I can also do other things too. I can print out kind of the fade time, or I can actually print out the snapshot name here. So by adding a little bit more code. So to wrap up here, what I'm going to do is just print out the snapshot name in that same line of debug code. Again, this is more advanced knowledge that you don't have to know, but sometimes this is how programmers kind of say, oh, what's wrong with my code if there's something that's broken. So here you can say, oh, layer 3 just came on. And over here, layer 2 came on. Or layer 2 went off. So it's a way of sort of checking how this is all working together. All right, hope you enjoyed these tutorials, and good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.